Hello and welcome everyone, a new episode of Money Means Business. We are going to tackle important economic files as usual, and we are going to start immediately as we do have a lot to speak about. But let me first welcome my dear guest live here in the studio, His Excellency Ambassador Ayoub Mahmoud Ayoub, former Commercial Minister. Thank you very much for being with us, sir.
Thank you. Good evening to you and to the viewers.
Sir, as I said, we do have a lot to speak about, and I was really thinking of the good chance I'm really having today, since you are a symbol of what we called economic diplomacy. And I borrowed this term from Her Excellency Minister of International Cooperation, Dr. Rania Al-Mashat, when she used it more than once in her speech in Hikayat Watan, or A Story of a Nation conference, which was held less than 2 weeks ago. In fact, the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is a master when it comes to economic diplomacy, as he is always keen to have all the time on the sidelines of any visit outside Egypt to have economic diplomacy, meeting with many CEOs of mega multinational companies, businessmen, you name it. And today, Finance Minister Mohammed Ma'it released a statement asking the international financial institutions to take into consideration the extraordinary economic changes worldwide in order to reach a realistic, comprehensive vision. Where this took place as the minister was speaking at a round table with representatives from the International Monetary Fund on the sidelines of his participation in the annual meeting of the fund and the World Bank. Before going into the details of the statements of Ma'it, if you permit me, Mr. Ambassador, I want to have an interpretation, or to analyze these words. Geopolitics tensions led to rising cost of living, and we are asking the institutions to take this into consideration.
International institutions have set rules. But these set rules, which were prepared starting from 1945, things are changing. The world is changing. The set rules has to acclimatize itself with the changing conditions of the world, not only the developing countries, but also the world. Many things have changed. We cannot photocopy it and try to gauge or to use it as a meter for everything in 2023. Things have changed. This is one thing. Other thing which is very important. There is difference between developing countries and developed countries and the highly developed countries. We cannot use the same criteria in gauging the credit rating, for example, and. So I must take in consideration the situation in every country. This is one thing. Other thing, when we are speaking about a country like Egypt of 110 million people, or consumers, as I call it, consumers, not only inhabitants, they constitute a big force for production and at the same time for consumption. So I cannot equate it with these people in Switzerland, for example, or Finland or Canada. There are different criteria, should be flexible enough to take in consideration the situation in each country. Take in consideration, this means that let us look to the last 6 or 7 or even 10 years. See how far we have developed in many sectors.
In the very same time?
And in a very,
or coinciding with each other? In
the same
parallel,
time.
I mean.
And at the time of coronavirus, at the time of Korean War, still there were positive economic development in Egypt.
Amen to that. I'm going to go to this and into details because you mentioned very important points, Ambassador Ayoub. But before going into these points, with all my respect to countries whose population are less than 10 million, we do have 9 million visitors, guests, because we do not call them refugees. We do not put them in tents or shelters. They are living with us, among us, and enjoying the rights of Egyptians. So this also should be taken into consideration. True?
A new dimension for when we are trying to gauge and to see how far development is. When we are seeing immigrants or refugees or guests, let us call them guests,
Because the president is
Yes.
calling them all the time guests.
Yes, they are
The
guests.
president never uttered the word refugees ever when he is speaking about our guests who are living here in Egypt from different countries, you name it.
The only country who are calling them guests is Egypt.
Amen.
This is something very important, and from humanitarian point of view, and also they are coming from Sudan, from Syria, from Ethiopia, from Eritrea, from Libya, from
Iraq,
from
Yemen.
from Yemen. You name it. This is about at least 10 countries they have their refugees or guests coming from the and
9 million.
they are enjoying
There
everything
are,
like Egyptians.
there are, how many countries are there in the whole world, independent countries, whose population are less than 10 million? Then we do have a country inside the country. I'm
So,
not going to say that, of
you see,
course,
10%
but
of
the
the
number is
population-
really frightening when it
Yes.
comes to many criteria, when it comes to food, to services, to education, health,
the
you
health
name
and-
it.
Yes.
To return back to what you have just said, because Ma'it added, for example, the challenges included serious repercussions of the global pandemic and geopolitical tensions. Who ever imagined 5 years ago that today the world is going to bear the very grave negative consequences of a pandemic which lasted for 2 years, and now the Russian-Ukrainian war, which almost now 2 years. I mean, next February. I
Yes.
hope it's not going to continue to reach
Inshallah.
next February, but with the supply chain issue, the energy, you name it.
Many things, many things. When we see that, despite all these adverse effects, we find that the growth rate in Egypt 4.8. My God, 4.8, and in China it is 2 point something, and in other countries it is minus. This means that a lot of work has been done in Egypt during that time. People are not feeling it all, but we will feel it at some stage in the very near future. So what has been done needs to be completed.
Sure.
That's very important. What has been done, we should be a little bit patient with the results because it takes time. Third thing is that many industries are suffering worldwide, but in the case of Egypt, they are every day we see millions of inputs are coming out from the customs areas to the factories in Egypt. So a lot of work has been done, but this does not mean that we should be lenient or relaxed. No, we should not. We should be alert at all time because the world around us, there are hostile forces. We see how this is happening in Gaza.
Powers of
There,
evil.
or to see what is happening in Sudan. This adversely affects the situation in Egypt, of course. See what is the situation in Libya. Is it not that stable? This is a burden on the Egyptian economy because
It's our strategic fronts.
yes.
Anyways, let's continue with the statements which were released by Minister of Finance, His
Finance.
Excellency Dr. Muhammad Ma'it. The cost of finance in world markets are very high. As the international financing institutions must act to pump sufficient financing packages in emerging markets to restore confidence of investors.
This is a very important statement by His Excellency Minister. Why? Because I cannot equate it, we are not in equal footing with Singapore or let us say Spain. In the case of Egypt, the growth rate is 4.8 as mentioned, and also population growth is 2.8 or 2 point something or 2.6, which is very high, by the way. It's very high. So the financial institutions has not to put us on the same footing with the other countries who are, or let us say, well-to-do, like South Korea or Singapore or Japan or these countries. So they have to take into consideration the burden which we have, the extraordinary situation in which we are facing, resulting from the immigrants or as you called it, friends or guests to Egypt, and also the aftermath of the war and the supply chains which has been disrupted. All this, although all these factors are there, they are negative factors, by the way, but still growth rate of 4.8. This means that a lot has been done, and not so many countries were able to achieve this 4.8% growth rate. This is one thing. Other thing which is very important, the people should know. It is very important. Should know what has been done and the results and the cost. The cost is very important in any economic project. We have to know two things: cost and revenue or cash flow. We have to know it beforehand so that they are more cooperative, more receptive, and also understanding, so that they don't listen to the rumors or these things which we are suffering from all the time.
Amen to that. Sir, also, the minister said that Egypt is very interested in boosting cooperation with international institutions to accelerate economic recovery, in addition to the application of structural reforms that are mainly contributing to stimulating investments, local production and exportations, and encouraging our private sector.
Stimulating investment.
Number one.
This is a very important point, because we need investment. When we say investment, I mean both local investment and foreign investment. We are focusing on foreign investment simply because it is of big amount and is badly needed, and also what comes with it is technology transfer. It is not just money.
Sure.
Administration and technology and the capital. All the things are badly needed in Egypt now. Why? Because the national savings rate in Egypt is low. For this or that reason. We are not going to discuss this now. So it has to be compensated through investment. Local investment is limited in this respect as far percentage-wise. So most of the investments should come from overseas. We are creating a very friendly, investment-friendly environment for new investors. When the president, just a couple of weeks ago, has a meeting with the investors and industrialists, see what do you want, and he said this will, and they explained everything to him, and said what you want will be implemented within 60 days. This means that the country, the president himself, and the government is keen to stimulate investment, to encourage investment, and make use of the abundant resources which Egypt has. We have a lot of resources in Egypt. I'm not speaking about natural resources, but I'm speaking about tourism, about the manpower which we have, about the Egyptians who are working abroad and transferring their money to Egypt. These are some of our resources. We have a lot of
remittances.
We have a lot of resources.
And this is going to take me to the private sector.
Yes.
And to what extent the private sector can have a very positive role in pushing forward economy and to add to the Egyptian exports, to invade new markets, if I may call it this way, and to make it their target or their aim to enter new markets in different domains and in new domains. How do you see this?
Private sector has a role to play. This role, as I see it, is not the optimum one now. It is less than what we expect. So
why, sir? Why less? I mean, now there is the golden license. There is the package of the president made a package of incentives for the private sector. We announced more than once that we are ready to open new horizons.
Yes.
And sir, before going to this, but would you please, I'd like to have in detail your vision regarding that, because for example, only a few days ago, Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli witnessed the signing ceremony with a very big multinational company in the Golden Triangle, as my dear guest prefer to call it, in the New Suez Canal, with investments worth billions of Egyptian pounds in the field of green fuel. Let's watch.
In just one field.
In just one field. We are going to turn back to speak about this and in detail right after the short break. I beg your pardon, the investments in this agreement reached $3 billion, not pounds, and in the very first phase. Sir.
This is putting in practice what the government is saying. Government created a friendly, investment-friendly environment for foreign investors, and now the Prime Minister signs and see the signature of this memorandum of understanding for $3 billion. That's about 90 billion Egyptian pounds, more than 90 billion.
In the first phase.
It is just one stage, that is the first stage. This means that we are creating, first, we are creating new jobs. We are transferring technology. We are coping with the needs of the market, which is very important. The ships which are passing by the Suez Canal, we are not a transit country, but we are a hub for development for the green fuel or environmentally friendly fuels, which will be supplied to the ships who are passing by the Suez Canal. So we are making good use of our geographical location through investment. Foreign investors are coming, focusing on the golden triangle of Suez Canal. This is very important. So we are making very good use of the available resources and putting it in the market. This is one thing. Other thing is that many Egyptians are looking now to the golden triangle, and I will not say immigrating to Suez Canal zone, but they are traveling to Suez Canal, where there are many new job opportunities for Ain Sokhna and in Suez Canal until Port Said. Until from Port Said to Ain Sokhna, we see the Egyptians are flying. It's a new attraction point for them. I have been to Siwa and I've seen a lot of development on the ground. A lot of development. When I see Moroccan investors are investing in Siwa, my God, I did not know that until I have seen it myself. They are investing in dates, we call it tamr, and they are very pleased that they are making profit out of Egypt, because we have a lot of natural resources which should be well utilized, whether by the local investors or by international investors, and we are welcoming them. And the Prime Minister himself is keen to increase the actual presence of the foreign investments in the Golden Triangle and in other areas of Egypt. And we are very pleased that this is bringing results. One of it is just $3 billion for one stage.
Yes, and to add to what you have just said, sir, one of the aims of this investment project is to reach zero carbon emission, meaning that we are building on what we have achieved as the president with Egypt still in the presidency chair of the COP27. So it's another message sent to the international community that we are coping with what we have said. We are not only saying words, but our deeds on the ground are to continue what we have started.
COP27 was very useful for Egypt in Sharm el-Sheikh. Even in Emirates, when they will have COP28, and they are making use and using the experience which Egypt had in this respect. And COP27 has many positive results as far as green energy is concerned, as far as many projects have been materialized during the last only couple of years. So this means that a lot has been done, but we need more, so that the people should be convinced that the economic plans are bringing results which are felt by all the people, so that they don't complain about the escalation in prices only.
Well, sir, since we were talking about the Suez Canal Economic Zone and the Memorandum of Understanding, or the agreement which was signed recently with the presence of Prime Minister Dr. Madbouli. Prime Minister Dr. Madbouli was today in a visit to Port Said.
Yes.
Okay, and he was, of course, accompanied by a number of high-ranking top executives, in addition to Local Development Minister Hisham Amna. The industrial zone, this time in South Port Said,
yes,
which has a number of newly established factories, in addition to the old ones, as several projects are carried out there to serve different fields.
when we say Port Said has a meaning, a wide-ranging meaning as far as development is concerned, as far as location is concerned, as far as Suez Canal is concerned. When the Prime Minister goes to Port Said to inaugurate new projects in energy and in manufacturing, this means that a lot of job opportunities are be created, and the same national income will be increased, and at the same time we will have surplus in our exports, because we need to export, because we know that Egyptian imports are almost double the exports. So we have a target of 100 billion US dollars. Now it is about 40, less than 40. So there is a lot to be done, and the Prime Minister has been there to achieve part of it.
To
will be
witness
achieved.
this on the ground.
Yes.
Field visits are very important.
It is very
and
important.
I don't think that this is going to stop, because, of course, our top executives...
You will not yet. You will not stop.
I mean, they are implementing presidential directives. Go yourself and see the pace of work. And this is exactly what the president is doing himself, to go and to see himself even how a bridge and access, the construction work in new areas, you name it. But also, in addition to the industrial zone in South Port Said, Prime Minister Dr. Madbouli was keen to witness himself the accomplishment or the pace of work in Port Said Stadium, or El Masri Stadium.
Good.
The new stadium has been designed in line with the latest standards of FIFA as well as CAF, including using the hybrid grass for the surface of the playground, composed of natural grass combined with artificial fibers. The latest technologies, and this is now a mix between encouraging sports and, in the same time, more construction, taking into consideration that every new project should be upon the latest international standards.
We are very pleased that the stadium is constructed in Port Said at this standard. We have seen some mishaps in Port Said some years ago, but now we are compensating it, and so that it will not be repeated. And the Prime Minister, when he goes to see the latest technology used in constructing a stadium in Port Said, this means that many international events can happen in Port Said thanks to what is being done now, whether in clean energy. We know that the FIFA will have its next round will be near us it will be in Emirates, or I think the Emirates, FIFA, they will, no, it will be in Morocco.
In Morocco.
In Morocco,
Yeah.
Spain and Portugal. But what is happening very near to us is what is
Inshallah.
the COP28.
By the way, a day after the other, we are
Yes.
going to witness more events in the Middle East region.
And more interaction
Yeah.
with the neighboring countries was very important to us, whether it's in Morocco or Emirates.
There is all the time the word, the schedules, the timetables, they were all the time mentioned when it comes to mega projects. Upon time, even before that. There is all the time presidential directives take care or take into consideration that no delays are permitted.
That is, this word are not permitted. This word means a lot.
Yeah.
This means that the local bureaucracy,
No more.
that is very important. It is opportune now to mention it. Local bureaucracy as being disciplined now, or being more polite and more behaving themselves, so that they should not impede any development, but rather help it in every possible way. That is very important, because many investors during the last years were complaining about bureaucracy. And when they sat with the president himself and said this will be achieved and implemented within this, what they want, within couple of months, just 2 months, not couple of months, just 2 months. This means that we are serious about investing, we are serious about creating the right environment for the investors, and at the same time we are keen to raise the job opportunities for the Egyptians in new areas which were not tackled before.
Amen
That is
to
very
that.
important.
And to add to what you have just said, as we are speaking about Dr. Mohammed Maid being in Morocco to participate in the IMF annual meetings, Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli is in Port Said to inspect the
moving
pace
all
of
the
work
around. Yeah.
in national mega projects. And President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi himself had an important meeting today in the morning with General Ahmed El-Azazi, the head of the Armed Forces Engineering Authority, to tackle himself and in detail the pace of work in a number of mega projects implemented by the authority nationwide. And also they tackled in specific the timings, the schedules, and to make sure that the pace of work is going on according to the pre-planned schedules. How do you see this, sir?
When I see that the original feasibility study needed 5 years for implementing the project, and the president says it should be 3 years only, this means that he is pressing them so that they work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I have seen in China the public works which are implemented there, they are working 24 hours, not just from 8 to 2 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., but rather to work 24 hours. That is why the president himself said it should be implemented by 2025 instead of 2030. This means a lot. This means a lot in implementation and also in having the results, because we are making it easier to have the results of the projects, which instead of it is we gain the results.
Let me put my question in other words, sir, because this is very important. In many occasions, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said we do not have the luxury of wasting time.
Luxury, yes.
And work and work, and all the time we are witnessing ourselves that many of the projects are being implemented, or they are fully executed even before the timing which was set before. This can be considered as a burden on our economy and on ourselves, or this is the only option we have because simply we do not have, as the president said, the luxury of wasting time. Which is which?
It is not a burden, but rather a must during what we have seen around us. We have seen a lot of development during the last few years, but this is not enough. I say it is not enough. When the president himself said it should be implemented in a shorter time, this means that the local producers and manufacturers and should work 24 hours a day. That is 4 shifts. Each shift is 6 hours. This means that it is not a burden on but rather an advantage to the economy, because the results will be earlier. Instead of 2030, it will be 2025. So it is not a burden, but rather a benefit for the local economy. And which is very important, this end is very important, the local administration should cope with what is needed. Make it easier, make it less expensive, that is very important, and at the same time import the needed parts, which in many cases they are delayed in the customs, they are late.
Production components, you mean?
Yes, production and components. I'm speaking production components only. I'm speaking about production all the time, because we need to speed up the pace of the economy, and at the same time to raise the standard of living by having more manufacturing and localizing many industries in Egypt, and this we have seen. And
but sir, also, if you permit me, it's very hard to have priorities. I mean, it's very hard to say that I'm going to focus at least for this stage on land reclamation, for example, or cultivating millions of feathers because food security is a priority. No, food security is a priority, but how this is going to be maintained except with food manufacturing too, so industry. Oh, how this is going to take place without a very good developed, modernized infrastructure, so developing the infrastructure. Oh, what about the education service? Because without the qualified cadres with the vocational training, how this could run? How we can find a solution for this equation? Which to start with?
We cannot focus on one sector.
Okay.
In the last years, we gave priority to infrastructure. That is good, and we completed it.
Then this should have been the priority, the first step,
Yes.
and this is exactly what
That was
happened.
important.
To build on it,
And rose
what
in
you are gonna
electricity.
continue
After that,
now.
the priority shifted. Manufacturing is very important priority. Agriculture or land reclamation is very important priority. Food industries, food industries are very important, not only for the local market but also for overseas, and because we know the different in seasons gives us an advantage as far as export is concerned. So the priorities are changing with time. The components are the same, but we rearrange it in a way that makes it more beneficial and more productive and to be reflected.
To what extent do you think that Egypt was that flexible to be all the time amending the roadmap of our development, Ambassador Ayoub?
Our roadmap is a very flexible one, because during the year, not the 5 year, we are changing a bit in it so that we cope with the changes. When we see that there are problems in chains of supply
chain.
So at the same time, we are increasing the exports to some markets, and at the same time replacing the imported material with localization of industry. So it is a flexible one, and quite the product mix is very important for us. The product mix means which mixture of components or priorities brings me the best results or the highest revenue. We are looking all the time for the revenue for the economy. What we have seen, the economic development plan in Egypt is flexible one. The roadmap changes during the same year to cope with the changes in the market. So this is number 2. Number 3, the local bureaucracy has a role to play, not in impeding or making it facilitating, but rather creating new areas for investment.
If you permit me, sir,
Yes.
now it's very much clear
Yes.
that the state is considering bureaucracy, negligence as part of corruption. It's included under this very big slogan, corruption.
Yes.
And corruption is not permitted anymore. So neither corruption nor bureaucracy, and of course negligence. There is no room for anyone who would follow this or that.
When we see that the heads of some organizations are put in prison, this means the corruption is punished, is
Yes.
punishable. Even the negligence, not corruption,
Yes.
even just negligence is punished. And a good example for those who are working for the others, because when you see that the head of an organization is put in behind the bars, this means that you can be in the same situation if you do the same thing. So we have to be very careful. We have to make it easier for investors and either for citizens to live. That is very important, because the government is working for the citizens. Many of them are complaining because they don't know. So the people we need to create awareness. What is there, what has been implemented, and how to make best use of the available resources. And we have a lot of resources in Egypt.
And the president was very keen in the 3-day conference of Hikayat Watan, or a story of a nation, to speak in detail. By the way, how do you see this transparent manner of telling the people everything on the ground? Because with all what we have achieved, this does not mean that we do have a rosy future. Simply, we can achieve this rosy future only by work.
We say, please create awareness and take action. First, create awareness, because the people need to know. And after that, action should follow it. People, when they know better, they will be more receptive and more proactive as far as the development projects.
Isn't it,
which
sir,
have been there.
that sign, it's a very optimistic sign, if I may call it this way, also to tell the people that if Egypt is not a really promising country with the potentials and an emerging economy, how we would join BRICS, for example, how we would be, for example, invited to India to participate in the G20. These are unprecedented achievements.
Yes.
How do you see this as also messages, as the president is very keen to say, I want to send you a message not to worry.
Yes.
Work, work, and work,
And work.
and then not to feel worried, because in the same time you're working, we are doing so, and whether on the national or international levels, as I said, only the BRICS and G20 were only examples.
This is one of the results of economic diplomacy. When we see that we are invited by India to G20 meeting, and we are invited to join BRICS after we joined already
Its
BRIC
bank.
bank. This means that the world is looking to Egypt in a positive way.
Amen.
The international organizations should also follow that pattern in looking to the Egyptian prospects.
This is exactly what I wanted to end with, and to take into consideration the statements which were released today, particularly by His Excellency Minister of Finance, Dr. Mohammed Ma'it, to the international financial institutions. Take into consideration the extraordinary economic changes worldwide in order to reach a realistic, comprehensive vision when it comes to emerging economy and when it comes to the Egyptian economy, let's be that frank. Well, sir, as usual, I enjoyed our discussion.
Me too.
And inshallah, we are going to be meeting again in more episodes of our program, Money Means Business.
Thank you,
sir. We are very much delighted to have with us our figure of economic diplomacy, His Excellency Ambassador Ayoub Mahmoud Ayoub, former commercial minister. And now, let's have a quick look at the most important achievements which took place in Egypt on the economic field in the past 9 years. Well, that's all for now. Many thanks for watching. With all my love, this was Nermeen Abdurrahman.